Hi, I'm George Pearson. In this Photoshop Elements video, we'll be doing this Bitcoin illustration. If you enjoy this video, make sure to click that like button and also share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss out on any videos in the future. If you want to really learn how to use Photoshop Elements, take a look at my complete training and you'll find that on my website and also on Amazon.com. Okay, let's get to it. There isn't any actual coin called a Bitcoin. Bitcoins exist completely in the computer cyberspace. But right now, if there were an actual coin, it would be worth about $20,000 last time I looked this thing up. So Bitcoins are very expensive. What I did for my illustration here is I based this on gold coins, which works out just fine. Now the one thing about this that is official is the B shape in the middle here. Okay, let's go ahead and close this down. And here's an official B shape. Now the circle is not, that's just part of this graphic, but the B shape in the middle is official, so we'll be using this as the basis for our illustration. We'll start off with a brand new file. Go up to File, New, Blank File, there we are. And I had this set at the default Photoshop Elements size, which is 6x4 at 300 resolution. Choose OK. I'm just going to dock this like that. Now to dock and undock files, just go up here to Edit, come down to Preferences and General, and make sure that this checkbox right here is checked. Allow floating documents in expert mode. When that's checked, you can then grab the title bar, pull it down, and float the window, or drag it up. It'll kind of change. There it is, let go, and that docks the window. The reason why we're doing that is so that we can float this graphic out here, which makes it real easy to copy this graphic from this file over to that file. Just drag and drop and close that out. Now obviously this is the wrong size for this. I need to have it about that big. So let's get that set up. The first thing I want is to have guidelines in here. I have my rulers showing, as you can see. Go up to View and make sure that rulers is checked. Then come down to New Guide. Let's set one vertical. Let's say vertical guideline right in the middle. Now this is 6 inches wide, so 3 inches is the middle. I'll just type in 3, choose OK. There's our vertical center. Let's now do a horizontal center. View, New Guide, change to horizontal. And since our height is 4, halfway is 2, type OK. There's our exact center. We can now take this and just drag it up here, and it'll kind of drop right into the center. Now notice how it snaps. I'll go real slow here. So it just kind of jumped right there. That's snapping right to that center point. To make sure it snaps, go to View, come down to Snap To, and make sure that layers and document bounds are checked. They should be. That's the default setting. We now need to enlarge this up to a certain size, and so we all have the exact same size. We'll put in a new guideline up here as a reference. So View, New Guide, and this time type in 0.25. That's 1/4 of an inch right there. Okay, now grab upper left hand corner, drag that up just until that line touches that blue line. There it is. See how it kind of goes just a little bit reddish? That's where we want that to be. Now come down to the bottom right hand corner, pull this one down until the center is back on the center again, which is right there. And choose OK. Alright, this is now the right size. We can go ahead and hide those guides. We don't need those at the moment. Uncheck the guides. They're just hidden. Okay, now we need to have the B on its own layer. Right now the B and the circle on the same layer. It's easy to do that. Go to the polygonal lasso tool and just make a quick lasso around the B. Don't touch the circle. Don't touch the B. Come back to your starting point. Doesn't need to be clean. Just like that is fine. And then go to Layer, come down to New, and Layer via Cut. What that does is it cuts the B out from the one layer and puts it on a new layer. So we now have the B on one layer and the circle on one layer. We'll need the B just a little bit smaller than it is right now. So make sure you're on the B layer, and then use the Control-T keyboard shortcut, and that gives you these control handles. Now down here on the options, this is the transform options. where it says constrain proportions, make sure that's selected, that little check in there, and then change the width to 90. With the constrained, this also matches that on the height. And choose OK. So we just made the B 90% the size that it originally was. That gives us a little bit of space out here for our lettering in there. Okay, there's the B. B's taken care of. We can now hide this just temporarily. We'll come back to that later. Come down to layer 1. I'm going to rename layer 1 circle. And let's go up here to layer dim and rename layer 2. Just double click on that. I'll call this original B. Okay, back to our circle. Switch over to the magic wand. Make sure you're on new. Tolerance is not that critical on this one. And then click out here in the white area. What that does is it selects everything outside of that circle. Let's now invert this. So select, inverse. Now everything inside of that circle is selected. Let's go ahead and save this at this point. Select, save selection. I'll just call it circle. There we are. Now make a new layer below this. There, easy way to do that. Come down to the background layer. Click on the new layer button right there. Here's our new layer. We're going to fill this with an orange. It'll be our reference orange. Come down to the colors. Click on the foreground color, which is probably black. We'll be using kind of an orange color up in here someplace, but I have a specific one to use. So down here, this is the hexadecimal number, easy way to reference colors. Type in EFC55F. Right there. That's the exact color we want. Choose OK. Grab the paint bucket and click inside. That fills that circle with that color. Again, this is just our reference circle. So there it is without that. We can now hide that or delete that selection. There we are, finished with that. Let's show our circle again. Click on this layer and show the circle. Make a copy of this circle. Just drag it up there. And then hide the original. So we have our copy up here. We'll be making another circle in here and trimming out the inside part of this circle to make the rim. But first we need to have a proper size position for that. So go up here to View, come down to New Guide. This is a vertical guide, and set the size at 1.35 right there. Now move over to the Elliptical Marquee tool. Make sure that you're on New Selection, Feathering set at 0. Set the aspect to fixed ratio and the ratio at 1:1. With the ellipse and at 1:1, this makes a perfect circle. So come in here, put your crosshairs right there, right over the center. Hold the Alt key down and then pull out from the center. And pull it out until it touches that guideline that we just put in. And that's right on top of that guideline. Okay, that gives us our selection. Now we're still on the circle over here. Move to the Move tool and then just hit the Delete key. And that cuts out that inner part of that circle. You can now disable that selection, deselect, there we are. We can now hide our guidelines again. So let's go ahead and colorize this. This will be in our standard color, which is already set. Grab the paint bucket and click right inside that black line. There it is. You can't see it. If I hide the background, you'll see it. There you go. Back to the Move tool. Come down now to Styles. There it is. And then set styles at Bevels. We'll be using a few of these in here. The first one is this one right there. It's called Simple Inner. If you hold just for a second, it'll show up. Double click on that, and that applies that Simple Inner, and that becomes the rim of our coin. Okay, back to the layers. There we go. Let's now work on the B's. So let's show the B again. Go up to the B layer right there. Make a new layer above this. So here's our new layer. Fill this with our reference orange. Paint bucket and click anywhere, fills it like that. It just fills the whole thing. That's fine. Hide that for a second. Now come down to the B layer. Grab the magic wand and click inside the black part of the B. That makes that a selection. We can now show this top layer again. Go back up to the top layer and then hit the layer mask. You can't see anything because it's sitting on top of this background reference card. Let's just hide that for a second. There we go. So this is actually creating our B shape. We can now hide that original B. So the B is made by the layer mask and not by the layer. And there it is. We're now going to put a style on this thing. Back down to Styles. Upper left-hand corner, there's one right there. It's called Inner Ridge. Let's go ahead and click on that one, and it puts this inner ridge effect. Now it's too strong, so we'll go back to our layers, and you'll see now we have an FX over here on the right-hand side. Double-click on that. That brings up the Style Settings dialog box with those styles. What we care about here is the bevel and also the lighting angle. Let's change the lighting angle over to 136. And then come down to the size and change the size here to 13 pixels. It's just a little bit smaller on that outer kind of a beveled edge. And then choose OK. All right, that's the outside part of the B. Let's now do the inner part of this. Take this layer, drag it up to the new layer button just like that. There we go. And this time, right there where it says L, that's the name of the layer. Right click on that and choose Simplify Layer. It collapses the whole thing down to just that. Now if I hide and show that, you'll see it's actually a B shape right there. Go to the magic wand and uncheck where it says Contiguous right there. Bring the tolerance down to the default, which is about 32. And then click inside the flat area in here. And that selects the inside of the B. Go up to Select, come down to Modify and Contract. And contract that by 2 pixels, makes it just a little bit smaller. And then Layer, New Layer via Copy right there. So if I hide these things, there's that new inner part of that B. Okay. We can now put an edge on this, a bevel on this one. Come down to Styles again. And the one you want is this one right here. Just click on that. It's the Simple Inner. And it puts this kind of a nice rounded bevel in there. All right, that takes care of the B's on this. Back to our layers. So the B's are all finished. We're now going to do our background gradient in here. So we can hide the B's. We're only seeing that ring. That's fine. Gradient goes inside here. Let's come now down to the background layer right here. Go up to Layer, New Fill Layer, and Gradient. And choose OK. This brings up the gradient fill. There it is. Now set the gradient here to the upper left-hand corner. That's foreground to background. And then it should be at Style Linear. Set the angle to 50 right there. And then click on the actual gradient icon, and that brings up the gradient editor. In here we'll be doing a few adjustments. First off, the left-hand side will already be the correct color. That's right down there. Come over here about halfway, just a little more than halfway through, and click down here. Now notice that my cursor is an eyedropper up here. It's a hand right there, and it's an arrow down here. Or it's a hand. You can see a hand. Then just click in there. Now put the location at 60. And that's our second color stop. Now click in here again, right there. Set this location to 68. Notice the little black triangle. That just shows that that's one that's selected. Click on Color, and we'll change the color down here on this one to EF AF 4B. Just a little darker and a little redder. Choose OK. You can kind of see it up there in the gradient. Come down to the one at the far right. Click on the far right. And go to the color for that right here. And the color on this one is 3C1E01. So it's a little more redder still and down into a brown. You kind of see it right up in there. And then choose OK. Now take this stop. I want to move this over to here. So we'll change the location to 77. Just like that. So there we go. And then choose OK. There's our basic gradient for our coin. You can choose OK here as well. So the whole thing is now built inside of this. But we're seeing all this outside stuff. Let's go ahead and fix that. Where there's this layer mask over here, right click on the layer mask and choose delete layer mask. That's now gone. Go up to select, load selection, and we'll load in that circle. Choose OK. And then click the layer mask button right below where it says create. Makes a layer mask, and that now becomes our new background coloration for it. Doesn't look great right now, but it will look great once everything else is on top. This will look like it's really reflective. Okay, that takes care of that background. Now, we're going to be putting in our text. There are two circles of text. One is just dots, and the second one is actual text in here. Going back over here to this layer, double click on the gradient side. Make sure you're on that side of the layer. Double check your colors. The foreground color should be our default color in here, the foreground color. If you're unsure about that, just show the other circle right here. Go to this layer, grab the eyedropper, and just click inside someplace. That resets that to that color. You can then hide that again. Okay, back down to this layer. Now, let's make a new layer above this. There will be putting in some text, but I always like starting text on a brand new layer. It just guarantees that it's not going to be interfering with anything else. Okay, now let's show our guidelines again. So View and Guides. There's our guidelines. Let's go back here to the Move tool again, just to make things easy. Show our circle. Here's our circle right there. We'll be using that inside edge of this circle. Go to the Type tool and come down here to this one right there. This is called the Text on a Shape tool. You want the elliptical shape, and then change the typeface. I'll just scroll up a little bit. One you want is called Tahoma, and it's right here, Tahoma regular. But really anything will work just fine. This kind of a standard size is just fine. Nothing really spectacular about this particular typeface. This just happened to be what I grabbed. Let's change the size here to 11. Make sure your color is that orange. This should match automatically your foreground color. Okay, that's all set. We have our tool selected. Now, notice we have a crosshair in here. See right there, crosshair. Go right onto the center. Hold down the Shift and the Alt key and pull out, and that will give you a perfect circle. Pull that out until it just touches that inner edge of that circle and let go right there. It makes a selection right at that point. Actually makes a kind of a clear shape at that point. Now notice as I move my crosshair here over that line, the cursor changes into an I-beam with a little squiggly thing through it. This allows me now to put text on that shape. So go over here, upper left-hand corner, right on the line, click on that point. That puts in a little insertion, a text insertion point. Now I'll be using a special keyboard shortcut here. This requires the numeric keypad on the right side of your keyboard. Hold the Alt key down and type 0149 and let go. That makes just a little dot. Okay, I'm going to hide that circle. There it is. And I'll zoom in on this. You can see what we're doing in here. Let's just zoom in a little bit. And let's hide the background. And there it is. Just makes this a little dot just like that. Let me show you the idea on this one. Let's go back here to our tools. Go to the Type tool. Make sure your type is centered. It should be centered already. But make sure it's centered. Click just to the right side of that. There's our insertion point. Now select that dot. Just pull like that across it. And then you can right click and choose copy, or do the Control-C keyboard shortcut. So I'll copy that. Now click against here just to the right of this, and then using the Control-V keyboard shortcut, I'm going to be just clicking on that and putting in a whole bunch of additional dots. There we go. Let's just zoom out so we can see this now full size. Hit screen. I'll go back to my Type tool here, and you come in just actually in any place in here is fine. Anywhere in that line is fine. And then Control-V, and just keep on tapping that V key until you fill this whole thing up with these dots. Now the reason why we have this at center down below, so it does this. It spreads out to both sides from that initial center point. Very, very important on this, that that's centered. If it's not, it's going to be, you won't be able to fill the whole circle up. And just keep on tapping around, tapping that V key, and it's going to bring this around and come right down to the end. When you get close, just slow down a little bit. And right there. Then choose green check mark. OK. So there we go. There's our line of dots. Let's put a style now on this. Come down to our styles. Now the one you want this time, we're still bevels, is right over here. Far bottom right, it's called the Simple Sharp Pillow Emboss. Click on that once. You can kind of see this kind of a shading thing happening in there. So now go back to our layers and let's show our background again. And there it is, kind of this little dotted edge happening around our coin. Okay, that's the first of our two text layers. The next one has actual type on it. We'll now make a new layer above the dots layer. So new layer right there. This just separates it out from that one. And back over here, we're going to be using the same tool again, the same text on a shape tool. But I want to have a guideline to judge this on. So view, new guide. You want a horizontal guide. The size here is 0.85. Puts in the guideline right there. Okay, same thing as before. We're on the ellipse. Color stays the same. That's fine. I'm going to change the typeface here. I'll just scroll down. It's one that I like. It's called Trajan Pro 3 Bold. It's just a Times New Roman kind of style typeface. You know, anything like this, little serifs on there is fine. Let me show you the Times. Here's the Times New Roman bold. That's fine as well. I just happen to like this one. It's just a little more angular looking. So I'll grab that one. Set it bold. Let's change the size here to 16.5. We may need to adjust the size just a little bit when we have this thing finished. But there's our basic setup. Go back over here to type. Make sure it still says centered. It does. Okay, back to this text on shape tool. We're all set. Put the cursor right over that middle again. And then hold down the Shift and the Alt key and pull out. That makes a circle. Pull it up until that circle just goes just on top of that guideline. It should just kind of snap right to it. There it is. It's kind of snapping right to that guideline right there. And let go. So there's our basic circle for our text. Now one last little thing to do before we put our type in here is to hide this layer underneath. Hide that type layer right there. Sometimes if you have a type layer underneath a new type layer, it'll jump down to that type layer and change everything to match that. You don't want to have that happen. So just hide that type layer temporarily. We're still in our layer 4 here. Back up to our line, come just over the line. There's our little tool again right there. And click right in here someplace. And let's just type in Bitcoin. And then a space and then Alt 0149. Now if you can't see the text, I'll show you that in a second. Let's go ahead and click on the check mark. Let's hide that background again. There we go. There's the text. And right beneath that dot is that dot that we just did as well. Switch back to the type tool. Go to the regular type tool. So there's that dot. Now click any place inside of that text. And then using the arrow key, click the right arrow until you're just past that dot and put a space in right there. There we are. Okay, now start before the B and then select that around to that space. Copy that. I'll use the Control-C keyboard shortcut. And then click at the end here and then Control-V to paste it. And I'll just do Control-V just a few times. That's about as far as it will go right now. It needs to be a little bit larger. So we'll adjust our size. Let's just select the whole thing like that. Come down to the size, and I'll be just making this just a little larger one step at a time. You just backspace 1 and try 17. Not quite there yet. Let me try 18. 18 might do it. And 18 looks real nice. So there we go. We just made our size adjustment. I'm looking at the space in here and thinking of the space between that dot and that N. Choose OK. And there is the type. Alright, now let's go ahead and show our background again. Now you can't see it except right up here. We're on that type layer. Notice how that new layer converted to a text layer in there. Okay, come down to the styles. And this time we'll be using a different style on this one, and that's this one right there. This is the simple sharp inner. Click on that, and that applies that kind of a sharp edge on that. And there's the coin text. Okay, back to layers again. We can now show the dots one more time, and there's our dots. There's our coin text. Okay, at this point, we can hide the guidelines again. View, let's hide the guides, and let's bring in our B shapes. All you need are just the top two up here. That's the B shape for the coin. We'll now be putting in our kind of reflection in here. Okay, come down to the background. The background now is, of course, this layer right here. Let's make a new layer above this layer. Double click on the layer first. Cancel that out. So you're right here. Look for that light blue outline. Make a new layer above that. And let's fill this with black. So come down here to the colors. Click on the little icon down there that resets the colors to their defaults. Grab the paint bucket tool and click out here someplace. It just fills that layer with black. Okay, come down to this layer mask here. Hold the Alt key down and drag that up. What that does is it copies that layer mask up onto the black layer. So there's now black in here. Now back up to this layer, make sure you're on the left hand side. Let's just go back to the Move tool and then Filter, come down to Render and Lens Flare. See, here's the shape of the coin right there. Here's our lens flare. Notice that crosshair right there in the middle of that highlight. Grab that crosshair and you can pull the highlight around. There you go. Put down here, kind of the bottom left-hand corner, just right about there, and let go. Then choose OK. I need to get rid of all this black stuff and show just the highlight. So go up to the blend modes and come down here to Linear Dodge Add right there and choose that. We now have this real nice kind of bright highlight happening in here. Notice how it's not on top of the B, so I need to have this on top of the B as well, but it has to be done separately for this whole trick to work. So take this layer, drag it up to the New Layer button. We now have two of those. Take the top one, drag it above the B's. There we are. Now I need to change the layer mask here from this layer mask to the B layer mask. So click on the B layer mask, hold the Alt key down and drag it up to that layer. Replace layer mask, yes, and it's now the B layer mask. And there we go. There's a highlight on top of the B's and the highlight underneath on the coin. And that finishes off the front of the coin. We can now begin to work on making our turned coin and our different background in behind. Let's scroll down to the bottom of our stack in here. Click on the background layer right there. Double check your colors. They should be at their defaults. If they're not, just click on that little icon to set those back at the defaults. Let's put a new layer above our background layer. There we are. You can see that right there, new layer. And change over to the gradient tool. Click on that arrow and change to the first gradient. That's the foreground to background. And then bringing your cursor down just off the bottom of the screen, right there, bottom right below the image. Hold the Shift key down, pull straight up to the top, and let go. That puts in just a nice little background gradient in there. Okay, back to our Move tool, and then hide both of those two layers. Hide the black and white and hide the white. You should now see just clear in behind the coin. Okay, everything else is where it should be. Let's scroll to the top, click on your top layer right there, and let's now use a special keyboard shortcut. Control Shift Alt and then tap the E key just once, and it makes a new layer right there, which is combining all of this stuff into this one layer. We can now hide all of these things. Just click on those eyes to hide all that stuff. There we go. And I'll scroll down, hide that, hide that. Leave everything hidden just for the moment. There's our basic coin just by itself, all in just one layer right there. Okay, make a copy of this one. I'm keeping this one just as a safety. Make a copy of that hide that layer 6. On our top layer now to give this a turned look, so you see the edge a little bit, it should be a little bit thinner this way than it is this way, not quite as wide as it is tall. So we're on this layer. Use the Control-T keyboard shortcut to bring up the transform options. Uncheck where it says constrain proportions, and then change the width to 92 and choose OK. Now we'll be putting in a new guide over here to judge where the edge is. So it's show our guides, view, and guides. There's our guides. Do a new guide, so view, new guide. I want a vertical guide at 1.29 and choose OK. You can kind of see it in there. It's a little bit hard to see. Let me bring up that background again. I'll just bring up the white background. Okay, there's that guide right in there. It's the outer of those two guides. We're now going to make a selection of this coin. So magic wand, click outside, and then invert that selection. So select inverse right there. Now save that selection. Go up to select, save selection. I'll call this one coin turned and choose OK. Now if you use the left arrow key, you can move that selection out as long as you're still on that magic wand button. You can move the selection out. Just make sure it comes out to that second of those blue guidelines. That's right there. Okay, so there's our moved edge. We'll then use this as the edge and use this to create the edge of our coin. Make a new layer below this layer. Just come down one layer, click on the new layer right there. So there's a new layer below that layer. And we'll fill this layer with a gradient. So let's go over here to our gradient tool. We have black to white. Just go ahead and click on that icon. Let's change the black side of this. We'll put this back at our coin orange color. And again, we're down here at hexadecimal numbers right there. And this was EFBD 4B. There's our orange. Choose OK. Go to the right side, click on that one. We'll change this color to our dark brown color. Right down there. And that was the 3C1E01. That's our brown color. Choose OK. Set this at reflected. You can see it right there. Reflected. Then go up here. Here's the center line. Up just a little bit from the center, like right about here, kind of right to the side of that C right there. Pull straight up. You can hold the Shift key down to make that exact. And let go. What that does is it makes that gradient both directions, up and down, right in there. We can go ahead and hide those guides now. So let's view and let's hide the guides. Let's now switch our selection back to our saved selection. So select, load selection, and the one you want is the coin turned. That puts the selection back where it was. Now we're still on this background layer here, or kind of our edge layer. Just hit the delete key at that point, and that cuts out everything that's in behind the coin and just leaves that little sliver in there. So go ahead and deselect. If I hide the coin, you can see that there's that sliver right there. Okay, now let's put an effect onto this, a style onto this. So come down to Styles, and we'll use that same simple sharp inner again. Just double click on that. That puts a kind of an edge in here. Now it's too much. We need to adjust that edge. So go back here to Layers and double click on the FX. And here let's change the size on this one down to 4. Just very, very small. Lighting angle 136 should still be there. Size at 4 and choose OK. Puts just a real thin edge in here. And if I show our gradient background, there we go. Puts just a real thin light edge out there. Real subtle. Okay, so now go ahead and put our lines onto this. So back up again. We're on this layer. Let's put a new layer above this layer. There we go, new layer above that layer. And on this layer, we'll be putting in kind of a gray color. So come down to the foreground color, click on that, and it's right down here Actually, I hit it first time. 515151 right there. I just got lucky that time, but it's just kind of a medium dark gray. Choose OK. Fill that layer with this medium dark gray. So a paint bucket and fill. There it is. Now go up to Filter. Come down to Filter Gallery. And in here you want the Sketch section and halftone pattern, which is right here. And you want the line pattern style. Set the size at 3. There it is. And the contrast at 50. And what that does is it gives you these real thin black and white lines just in there. Okay, choose OK. There's your black and white lines. Now change the blend mode up here from normal down to soft light. So far so good. There's a nice little edges right in there. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to clean up this background in here, get rid of this background stuff. So come down to this layer here, layer 7. Grab the magic wand tool, click outside someplace. That makes a selection of the outside of that. Let's invert that selection, select inverse. So it's now just that little bit right there. Go back up to layer 8 and hit the layer mask button. Puts a layer mask on there. So those lines are now just showing just on that edge. And there we go. There's that coin. Okay, let's go ahead and float this, and I'll enlarge this. There we are. Let's just zoom in a couple of clicks. And there it is. There's our nice new gold tone Bitcoin graphic. Now again, this one's free to do. Make it yourself. Totally free. A real Bitcoin will cost you around $20,000 right now, somewhere in there. So there you go. There's a free one for you. Okay, that is how to make a Bitcoin graphic. Of course, if you want to have some fun on this, just change what that text says, put something else in here. Everything else can stay the same. You can make this any kind of coin that you want. But there you go. There is a Bitcoin. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.